Hello everyone, how are you doing? Today I brought a slightly different series, and I hope you enjoy it. We're getting close to reaching 30,000 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so and turn on notifications. Without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. This man is a psychiatric patient who hunts dangerous criminals during the day, but at night he becomes a murderous demon feared throughout the martial world. All because he stormed Mount Rua alone and wiped out the entire sect in a single night. When the major martial sects arrived to rescue them, all they found was a horrifying massacre. Is this really the Mount Rua we once knew? Some demon turned this place into a river of blood. At that moment, a staggering figure appeared in the distance, mumbling endlessly. It's over. Everything is over. The Mount Rua sect has been completely destroyed. Everyone recognized him immediately. Isn't that the Plum Blossom swordsman from Mount Rua? The swordsman cried in despair. He defeated all of us by himself. Before he could finish speaking, a sword flash appeared behind him and split him in half instantly. The crowd erupted in fury after witnessing that scene. You demon, show yourself now. Then they saw a blood-soaked man slowly stepping forward while holding a severed head in one hand. Quite a crowd gathered here. Shaolin, Dang, King X no Mang. All four great sects are present. Who are you? Why are you slaughtering everyone here? It was because he had heard the Mount Rua sect was supposedly the strongest force in the martial world. As he spoke, he casually tossed the sect leader's head onto the ground. Now that I've seen it myself, the rumors were disappointing. Perfect. Since so many of you came, you should entertain me a little longer, right? The crowd trembled with rage as they drew their weapons. Today I'll kill you here and avenge the souls of everyone who died at Mount Rua. With that, the great sects charged together to surround Dom Bansu. Watching them, he smiled. Just as I thought, this world is fascinating. When Dom Bansu opened his eyes again, he was already back home. This game is unbelievably exciting. Fighting countless masters alone was too much, even for me. It turned out that everything had happened inside a newly developed virtual reality game. Because the combat felt frighteningly realistic, the game quickly attracted countless players. While Dom Bansu was still replaying the battle in his mind, an emergency news report interrupted the television broadcast. At the same time, a faint cry for help came from the room behind him, instantly catching his attention. That game was way too entertaining. I almost forgot about you. As he said that, Dom Bansu grabbed the iron hammer beside him and slowly walked toward the room. A middle-aged man was kneeling on the floor, desperately begging for mercy, and he was none other than the missing company president mentioned in the news. Dom Bansu had kidnapped him because the fat man was complete human trash. He enjoyed abusing and even murdering innocent women. In the name of justice, Dom Bansu treated people like him as prey. No matter how desperately the man begged, Dom Bansu showed no reaction. He simply forced the man's head against the cutting board. How many times have you used this pathetic act of begging? Aren't you tired of it yet? Just as the hammer was about to fall, the fat man's survival instincts exploded, and he slammed his head into Dom Bansu's stomach. Caught off guard, Dom Bansu dropped the weapon and was thrown several feet backward. Taking advantage of the opening, the fat man violently snapped the plastic restraints binding his arms. You bastard, I'll make sure you die without even having a grave. In the next instant, he swung the hammer at Dom Bansu. Seeing that, Dom Bansu gave a faint smile and casually stepped aside. The fat man began trembling in fear. Unfortunately, it was already too late. Dom Bansu drove a brutal punch into his stomach. The pain was so intense it felt like the man's eyes would burst out. But Dom Bansu still didn't stop. Right after that, he delivered a vicious kick to the man's waist, sending his body flying. At that moment, the fat man felt nothing but despair. Even terrified of death, he instinctively crawled toward the light. He believed light meant hope, but the moment he saw what lay beyond it, he understood the true meaning of hell. There were corpses everywhere, dried out like mummies. Most humans are like harmless herbivores, but hidden among them are carnivorous beasts. They attack and devour the weak, and I am the hunter who specializes in killing those beasts. As Dom Bansu slowly approached, the fat man's fear reached its peak. At that moment, the door was smashed open. Suddenly, a large group of police officers stormed inside. Within seconds, Dom Bansu was surrounded from every direction with no way to escape. Dom Bansu, I am officially arresting you on charges of kidnapping, unlawful confinement, and murder. Dom Bansu looked surprised. How did you find this place? Unexpectedly, nobody answered. They simply opened fire. Kid, don't move. The next shot won't miss on purpose. Watching that scene, Dom Bansu felt as if he had returned to the martial world from the game. This feeling is incredible. Do you know this man murdered 6 women? He tortured them to death and recorded everything for fun. The corpses behind me are the same. Every one of them was a killer. Don't you think they're nothing more than animals? I simply became a hunter who hunts animals. But even after hearing all of that, the officer standing before him showed no anger and calmly lit a cigarette. Even if everything you said is true, so what? In my eyes, you're still just an illegal psychopathic murderer. Hearing that, Dom Bansu burst into loud laughter. Just as he expected, reasoning with mortals was impossible. With those words, he swung the iron hammer in his hand. The officer tried to stop him, but it was already too late. The gunshot and the sound of a skull shattering echoed at the exact same moment. I have never regretted anything I've done. If there is another life waiting for me, then I only hope I can slaughter those beasts freely, just like in that magnificent martial world. Scene after scene from his past flashed through his mind like an endless movie during the final moments of Dom Bansu's life. When he opened his eyes again, he realized he was still alive. Not bad, kid. You're tougher than you look. Even after taking that kind of beating, you still didn't die. But the moment the man noticed the lifeless emptiness in Dom Bansao's eyes, uncontrollable anger surged inside him. "You little brat, do you know how much effort it took to drag you off the streets? Just wait, tomorrow you'll definitely die." Being beaten for no reason instantly ignited Dom Bansao's fury. He stared at the man's back, grabbed a rock from the ground, and prepared to attack. But the instant he stood up, every bone in his body cracked, and his limbs refused to move properly. In the next second, he collapsed heavily onto the floor. After seeing those thin, fragile arms, Dom Bansao finally realized something was wrong with his body. He hurriedly opened his clothes and quickly confirmed it. That body did not belong to him. He cautiously peeked outside the door, trying to figure out where he was. The very next moment, the sight before him left him completely stunned. That place felt incredibly familiar. It was the martial world he had longed for even in his dreams. Dom Bansao could hardly believe his wish had come true in such a way. Wonderful. Welcome player Don Hong Bongsu to Miran Online, a world where only the strong rule. The former owner of that body was named Susan. A natural disaster had destroyed his family, leaving him completely alone and forced to survive like an insect. To earn food, he became the lowest servant of the Dang family. Anyone could humiliate him whenever they pleased. "Susan, get out here right now. I need you to do something." "Right now, sir, but I still haven't finished cleaning the stable." Before Susan could finish speaking, Big Mamone forcefully covered his mouth. "I'm not arguing with you, don't forget your place. You're just an orphan the Dang family took in. So don't get arrogant because you received a little kindness." In the next moment, Dom Bansao was dragged to the blacksmith shop by Don Hong Hong. Meanwhile, Mail ran off to the inn to enjoy himself. When the owner saw that only the two of them had arrived, he could not hide his concern. "Can you really carry all these weapons by yourselves? Boss, you misunderstood. For work like this, Susan alone is enough. Susan is like a purebred horse. There's nothing he can't carry. Right, Susan? Stop standing there and move those weapons already." After saying that, he turned around and headed to the inn to have fun as well. The owner pitied Susan deeply after seeing that, but there was nothing he could do. That was a world where the weak existed only as prey for the strong. To survive, people could only struggle forward like insects, even after falling repeatedly. Even if the road ahead was covered in thorns, they still had to crawl to the end. But fate seemed to enjoy tormenting people above all else. Even after finishing the day's work, his body had already reached complete exhaustion. He walked down the road like an emotionless corpse. Suddenly, Susan felt as though he had crashed into a mountain. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." The only response he received was a heavy punch. Where did everything start going wrong? Was it when I begged outside the Henry family gate just to survive? Or when the typhoon destroyed my family and only I remained alive? Maybe it all began the moment I was born in a place like this. Dom Bansao had an extremely long dream. When he woke up, he immediately understood that everything in that dream had been the memories of the body's previous owner. In other words, the real Susan had already been beaten to death back then, and Dom Bansao's consciousness had entered his body. At that moment, something strange caught Dom Bansao's attention from the corner of his eye. It was the Murim online system window. During the past few days, Dom Bansao had been too badly injured to move. Because of that, Mail brought him food every day. Damn it, do I seriously have to serve that brat every single day? After work, he should have just gone home quietly, but no. He had to run into that bad-tempered lunatic. And now look at this, I'm the one stuck cleaning up his mess. I should just kill him already, but the risk is too high. If anyone finds out, my head will roll too. Filled with anger, Makil kicked open the stable door and casually threw the day's meal in front of Dom Bansao. Then he left without even looking back. It had already been 2 weeks since Dom Bansao transmigrated into that world. From what Mail had said and from the information he gathered outside, he learned that the people there used Chinese characters. But that place was not Earth, because martial arts truly existed in that world. It was the kind of power that only appeared in movies and novels. People could move through the air so quickly that ordinary eyes could not follow them. The legendary martial arts were real there. It was practically a real-life version of Murim Online. And the system window existed there as well. A status bar similar to those in games floated before Dom Bansao's eyes, though nobody else could see it. At first he thought he had simply entered a game world, but after observing everything for several days, he became certain that it was reality. Every person he encountered possessed their own consciousness. All of them were living human beings. If this place is real, then am I a human or just a player? While Dom Banshu remained lost in thought, Don Hong walked through the door. "Susan, little brother, did you know? Some fool almost got beaten to death and was only released today. I spent all this time worrying about you." But after recognizing who it was, Dom Banshu slowly stood up. He picked up the day's meal and swallowed everything in one go. "You bastard, didn't you hear me talking to you? Looks like you really want to die." Hearing the threat, Dom Banshu stared at him coldly before crushing the porcelain bowl in his hand. He grabbed a sharp shard and drove it straight into Don Hong's neck. Blood sprayed everywhere as Don Hong made garbled noises without stopping. "Unfortunately, the man you once knew was already killed by all of you a long time ago." As he spoke, Dom Banshu raised the broken shard again and stabbed him repeatedly. At that moment, he had completely lost himself. The sound of flesh tearing mixed with his laughter. The entire world seemed stained red with blood. Hot blood dripped down like rain. "It no longer matters whether I'm human or a player. There's only one thing I know for certain. This place is reality. This world operates like a game. The weak become prey for the strong, and the powerful control everything. At last, I don't need to hide my true nature anymore. I'll keep hunting here until I'm satisfied. I'll hunt predators with greater strength and higher status. This place will become a true paradise for hunters." And so Dom Banshu committed his first kill after arriving in that world. Naturally, someone like that had no real value as prey. Still, there was one thing he needed to verify. The system inventory looked slightly different from what he remembered. In Miram Online, the inventory was divided into slots, and each slot could only hold one type of item. But now it had become a chaotic interface. When he reached toward it, his hand passed straight through. Inside seemed to exist a massive space spanning at least hundreds of square feet. If this interface works the same way as it did in the game, then as long as I touch the object I want to store, with a single thought, Dan Hong's body instantly transformed into data. In the next second, those streams of data were sucked directly into the system space. Dan Banshu stared at the bizarre scene in shock. A man that large actually fit inside there like that? That ability was far too useful. At that moment, a sudden thought crossed Dan Banshu's mind. If something alive enters that space, can it also be stored? He needed to test it when the opportunity came. The scene shifted to several days later. The wounds on Dan Banshu's body had almost completely healed. To avoid suspicion, he pretended to be mute. While continuing the same dirty and exhausting labor as before, he secretly observed the world around him. Suddenly, Mail slapped Dan Banshu from behind. "You brat, I heard you went mute." To avoid exposing himself, Dan Banshu only smiled foolishly and muttered incomprehensible sounds. "You useless mute, stop standing around. Take that horse out for a walk." Dan Banshu lowered his head to show obedience, though inwardly he grumbled in irritation. "Seriously? What am I supposed to do with an idiot who can't even speak?" The scene changed again, and Dan Banshu led the beautiful horse through the streets. As he admired the old-fashioned scenery, several suspicious figures suddenly appeared around the corner. It was a group of boys throwing stones at Dan Banshu. One rock struck his head immediately, and blood began running through his hair. The big idiot Susan is a mute idiot now. Just as the little troublemakers prepared to keep mocking him, Dan Banshu's expression darkened, and a terrifying pressure spread from his body. The chubby boy thought he was imagining things, and rubbed his eyes repeatedly. But when he looked again, Dan Banshu had already returned to normal. Dan Banshu muttered meaningless sounds and turned to leave. The chubby boy assumed he had backed down and instantly became arrogant again. He continued mocking him as Dan Banshu walked away. "Susan is mute. He can't do anything. He's an idiot." The scene shifted once more, and Mail arrived at the entrance to the weapons storage room. He was still grumbling to himself. "They seriously made me organize all these weapons alone. Who knows where that Dan Hong guy disappeared to for the past 2 days?" At that moment, Dan Banshu stepped out of the armory, leaving Mail shocked to see the weapons neatly arranged in perfect order. "You brat, you finished my work?" Dan Banshu immediately nodded and bowed repeatedly while pretending to flatter him. Who would have thought this guy would become smarter after nearly dying once? At that moment, Dan Banshu pulled out a small cloth pouch, offering it as a tribute to Mail. The instant Machil opened the bag, he froze. Inside were several copper coins. "You brat, today you handled things well. Looks like you finally learned some rules. I guarantee Dan Hong will never dare bully you again from now on." After saying that, Machil walked away with the money bag in hand, grinning from ear to ear. Meanwhile, the foolish look on Dan Banshu's face slowly disappeared, replaced by cold eyes. "Laugh as much as you want now. It won't be long before you can't laugh anymore." With money in hand, Machil was overjoyed. "Since I got some money today, I'm going to enjoy myself with that woman." Right afterward, he hurried excitedly toward the Phoenix Inn. "Master Machil, what brings you here today?" "I'll call Ain right away." "Boss, wait a moment. I'm not looking for Ain today. I want the top courtesan here, Shasim. Tonight, I'm choosing her." Hearing that, the owner's expression immediately darkened because he knew Mail normally had no money and could never afford the inn's top courtesan. But the moment he saw the pouch full of copper coins in his hand, a wide smile instantly spread across his face. "Master Makio, this way please. I'll call Shasim immediately." The scene shifted, and Makio was already sitting excitedly inside a private room. Not long after, a stunning beauty opened the door and entered. As expected of the top courtesan, she was far more beautiful than Ain. While the two laughed and enjoyed themselves, neither realized that a blood-red eye was silently watching them through a crack behind the wooden wall. That eye belonged to none other than the crazed protagonist himself. The story moved back slightly in time. The innkeeper watched Machu enter the Phoenix Inn. Then he lowered his head toward the pouch of coins in his hand, and a satisfied smile immediately formed on his lips. At that moment, another figure entered. It was Dan Banshu, who had followed Macho there. "Hey mute, what are you doing here? Do you even know what kind of place this is? If you don't leave right now..." But before the owner could finish speaking, Dan Banshu interrupted him by handing over a bag of money. Struggling to pronounce the words properly, he managed to say 4 words. "Miss Ain Aim." The owner opened the pouch, and when he saw it packed with copper coins, his eyes widened instantly. He immediately put on a friendly smile. "Sir, please head upstairs. Ain Aim will arrive shortly." And so Dan Banshu also went up to the 2nd floor of the Phoenix Inn. Everything happening inside Mail's room could be clearly seen by Dan Banshu from the neighboring room. After Mail finished indulging himself, Dan Banshu silently slipped over from the adjacent room. While Mail was still proudly boasting about himself, Dan Banshu slowly raised the bandage in his hand, and in the next second, wrapped it tightly around his neck. He pulled both ends with all his strength and began strangling him. "Damn it! Who is this lunatic?" Mail reacted immediately and struggled desperately, but Dan Banshu's grip never loosened. At the boundary between life and death, Mail used his remaining strength to leap violently and slam Dan Banshu onto the floor with his heavy body. But as long as Dan Banshu's hands refused to let go, there was no escape for him. "Tonight, either you die or I do." As Dan Banshu tightened his grip further, Mail's entire body began twitching, and the eyes once filled with life slowly rolled back. What an incredible feeling, watching a life slowly fade away right before my eyes. Dom Bansu fought until the very end, and finally strangled him to death. Then his gaze shifted toward the woman beside them, who remained fast asleep. He walked over and lowered his head to observe her. With a single glance, he confirmed that she was merely a harmless herbivore. After making sure she had not awakened, Dom Bansu turned around and headed toward the wooden board he had passed through earlier. The reason an extra passage had appeared there was because he had used the system inventory. As long as he touched the wooden board in front of him, he could store it directly inside the system space. Without a doubt, discovering more ways to use the system is essential for future hunts. And after killing Male, my experience points increased as well. That means this world functions exactly like the game. You gain experience by killing people, level up, and become stronger. The stronger I grow, the easier hunting becomes. At the same time, my experience will rise even faster. Perfect. I can continue growing stronger without limits. This is exactly how the world should work. At that moment, the owner finally found Miss Aim outside the door. I apologize, I got delayed because of a few things. Stop wasting time. The customer is still waiting inside. Go in already, since he chose you. Even if he's mute, you still need to serve him properly. Thinking about it carefully, Mak and Shasim had already been inside for an unusually long time without coming out. Surely they were not planning to spend the entire night there. Growing impatient, the owner knocked on Machil's room door. Brother Machil, that's enough already. Shasim should be coming out now. But even after waiting a long time, there was no response at all. Just as the owner was about to start cursing, Shasim's scream suddenly came from inside the room. The owner's expression changed instantly, and he hurriedly pushed the door open. All he saw was Shasim wrapped in a blanket, staring upward in terror. The owner was so frightened that he collapsed to the floor immediately. He could never have imagined that the lively and arrogant Machio from moments earlier would end up hanging dead inside his own inn. From that point onward, a virus capable of silently leading people to death began spreading quietly throughout the land. Since ancient times, the region had prospered because the land was fertile and the lakes connected trade routes together. But wherever wealth gathered, criminals and villains inevitably followed. To maintain order, many powerful clans gradually rose within the Bongyang region. Among them, the most influential were the Nonggun clan, recognized as Bongyang's strongest family, and the Danlei clan. Although the Danlei family was not one of the 5 great families, it was still regarded as a first-rate noble house across the Central Plains. They were especially famous for their exclusive military force, the Heavenly Sword Crusade Legion, and their intelligence-based execution unit known as the Black Crow Squad. Those two forces were renowned throughout the Central Plains. However, the Black Crow Squad had recently become entangled in a highly troublesome case. Another suicide outbreak. More than 100 people have killed themselves without reason this month. There were suicides before, but at most only 1 or 2 each month. It never reached this level. There is definitely something abnormal happening here, yet every piece of evidence points to only one conclusion. They truly committed suicide. Something like that? Is it even possible? Chief Jediu suddenly thought of something and immediately asked who the first suicide victim had been. When he learned it was Male Dang, who supposedly killed himself while listening to music inside the Dragon Phoenix Inn, Jediu instantly brought his men to investigate the scene. If this so-called suicide plague is actually murder, then how exactly did the killer enter Male's room? After carefully inspecting the entire area, Jediu eliminated every possible entrance and exit. That left only the wall. If the wooden boards had been removed, someone really could have passed through freely. The problem was that there was absolutely no sign they had been tampered with, because removing them without damage would have required lifting the entire roof first. Could this truly only be explained as suicide? When Male died, was there anyone staying in the room next door? Reporting to you, yes. That person arrived almost at the same time as Machi. It was Susan from the Dang family. At that moment, Dom Bansu was still leading a horse through the streets. Recently, he had killed enough people to nearly fill his experience bar, and he also discovered that stronger targets granted more experience. But in his current state, he still could not match real martial artists. While thinking about future targets, a voice suddenly called out to him. Well, if it isn't Susan, haven't seen you in days. You've gotten a lot better looking. A group of street thugs stood at the entrance of an alley, grinning at him. Why don't you come over here and properly greet your older brothers? Dom Bansu had not expected that even though Susan was considered an idiot, he still belonged to the Dang family, yet he was still bullied by trash like them. When Dom Bansu ignored him, the gang leader stepped forward and grabbed him by the hair. Come on, Susan, let's find somewhere quiet and have a little talk. What do you think? With that, he dragged Dom Bansu into the alley. Meanwhile, Dom Bansu calculated whether he could kill all of them, and disguise it as suicide or simply hide the bodies inside the system inventory. The problem was that there were too many witnesses, increasing the risk of exposure. And even if he killed them all, the experience gain would not amount to much. I'll take a beating for now and stabilize the situation first. After that, I'll look for a chance to get rid of them. But just as one of the thugs threw a punch at Dom Bansu, a voice interrupted them. That's enough, don't start trouble here. The voice came from the darkness and instantly suppressed the entire situation. I never told you to bring him here. The moment the thug saw who had arrived, he immediately began trembling in fear. Brother Jong-hook, why did you come personally? But Jong-hook ignored him completely and walked straight toward the beautiful horse behind Dom Bansu. Nice horse. The leader of the Black Snake Guild is obsessed with horses, so I want to gift this one to him. What do you think? Dom Bansu sensed the killing intent coming from him. That man had planned to murder him and steal the horse from the very beginning. He had simply chosen the wrong prey. Seeing that Dom Bansu remained motionless, Jong-hook's face turned ice cold. I don't intend to repeat myself. Before he could even finish speaking, Dom Bansu replied coldly. Stop pretending. If you want it that badly, then come kill me and take it. With that, he threw a punch directly at the man's head. At the same time, he summoned the system space and instantly pulled out the dagger stored inside it. To everyone else, it looked as though the blade had appeared out of nowhere in his hand. Jong-hook's calm expression vanished instantly as his pupils shrank in terror. But it was already too late. Until the moment he died, he never understood how he had been killed. The dagger pierced his throat with flawless precision. In the next instant, a brilliant light burst from Dom Bansu's body. Congratulations, player. You have reached level 2. The surrounding thugs were blinded by the intense glow and could not open their eyes. This is definitely evil sorcery. That bastard knows dark magic. But when they finally managed to see what stood within the light, a chill immediately ran through their bodies. A terrifying shadow emerged as if rising from the abyss. A demon. That guy has to be a demon. The thugs turned and fled. They did not fully understand what they had just witnessed, but they knew one thing clearly. If they failed to run, they would die. If they could just reach the sunlight ahead, they might survive. But in the very next second, the man's calf was sliced open mercilessly. He crashed heavily onto the ground. Hope is right in front of me. Am I really going to die here? That guy was just a coward. Whenever we bullied him, he only smiled like an idiot. Why has he suddenly become such a terrifying monster? I can't accept this. I'm really going to die at the hands of an ugly monster like him? When the man regained consciousness, he realized he was still alive. Not bad. You woke up quickly. As the bald man opened his eyes, Dom Bansu slowly approached him. He pulled out a dagger and pressed it directly against the man's throat. I ask one question. You answer one question. Any extra words are useless. Who was that man called Jong-hook? With death hanging over him, the bald man became so terrified that he revealed everything he knew. Jong-hook was actually one of the leaders of the Black Snake Guild, one of the gangs controlling the alleys of Bongyang. The guild leader was named Bian, and he was the one who ordered Jong-hook to kill Dom Bansu and steal the horse. I'm only a messenger. Please, I beg you, let me live. Tell me everything you know about the Black Snake Guild. If the information is useful, I'll spare your life. Seeing a chance to survive, the thug's eyes instantly filled with hope. But in the end, he still failed to escape death. Dom Bansu lightly touched him with his palm, and the bald man immediately transformed into particles of light before being stored inside the system space. After cleaning away every trace, the alley returned to silence. A deadly silence. He began organizing the information he had gathered. People like gangsters occupied the perfect position between martial artists and ordinary civilians. They're the perfect prey for leveling up. I didn't expect to find them so quickly, and when I leveled up earlier, every injury on my body disappeared completely. Maybe even damage to the heart or brain can be restored. This is almost identical to the game. There's also the light that appears whenever I level up. It looks flashy, but it can also attract real danger. That weakness needs to stay hidden. If a hunter wants to capture prey, he must appear completely ordinary. Only when I blend into the crowd so perfectly that nobody can distinguish me from it, will I become a true high-level hunter. From now on, every level up must happen either at the exact moment the hunt ends, or only where the prey is present. Now, pretending to be mute alone was no longer enough. Without exposing himself, he needed to grow stronger as quickly as possible. Thinking that, Dom Bansu led the horse out of the dark alley, quietly blended into the crowd, and soon vanished into the flow of people. After returning to the stable, the system suddenly displayed an error message. That caused him to fall deep into thought. The cause was probably connected to himself, and because of that error, the attributes that previously displayed only question marks had now changed into progress bars. Curious, Dom Bansu opened the skill panel below. In the next instant, an entire list of abilities filled his vision. Skills, slash, thrust, guard, throwing, spiritual eye. The first ones were all standard passive abilities from Muram Online, but he had never heard of spiritual eye before. While Dom Bansu studied the effects of spiritual eye, the system suddenly issued a warning. An enemy more than 10 levels above you has entered within a 20-meter radius. As time passed, the 20-meter distance steadily decreased. Dom Bansu stared at the message in disbelief. It seemed to function as some kind of warning system. In other words, a dangerous person was approaching him at that very moment. That should not have been possible. Very few people would dare invade the Dang family grounds, and if it were an intruder, they would not be moving so slowly. That meant the approaching individual was most likely an expert from the family itself. Although I don't know exactly how large the gap of 10 levels is, considering the price I paid just to reach level 2. The difference must be enormous. If killing ordinary people is the only method, then reaching level 10 would probably require thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of kills. A martial artist at that level wouldn't be ordinary even within the Dang family. In the next moment, the door in front of him opened. The captain of the Black Crow Squad entered alongside several subordinates. Dom Bansu immediately put on a shocked expression. He knew he could not reveal even the slightest flaw. That man was definitely not someone easy to deceive. You must be Susan, correct? Tell me, were you the one who killed Mail? Hearing that, Dom Bansu instantly showed a terrified expression. He began mumbling and gesturing wildly, desperately trying to indicate that he was innocent. But Jadayu had no intention of stopping there. Suddenly, he focused energy into his palm, and a violent wave of true energy instantly surged into Dom Bansu's body. Dom Bansu felt that force racing wildly through him before converging toward a single point. That place was like a black hole, swallowing the energy entirely. Jadayu investigated for a moment, then withdrew his hand and let out a quiet sigh. It seems I was mistaken. With that, he turned around and left. Only a pair of cold eyes remained hidden in the darkness, silently watching his back disappear. Chief, are we really just leaving like this? Don't you suspect him? Why not interrogate him properly? There's no need anymore. A moment ago, I injected true energy into his body to investigate him. Even someone who practiced martial arts only slightly would leave traces inside their body, but the result was completely empty. There was absolutely nothing. I'm certain he was just an ordinary person who never learned martial arts. Could so many people really have committed suicide? If this truly is a suicide plague, then how many more people need to die before it ends? But from that day onward, the suicide plague vanished without a trace, and in its place, a new bloody storm swept across all of Bongyang. A nameless vigilante suddenly emerged from the underworld and began settling accounts with the gangs one by one. Even the famous White Tiger Gang and the Scarlet Wolf sect were completely annihilated. Lower your voices, only the Black Snake Guild remains now. If they hear you talking, this won't end well. And what's there to fear? Sooner or later, our nameless hero will wipe them out too. After overhearing those rumors about himself, Dom Bansu quietly left the inn and headed toward that night's target, the headquarters of the Black Snake Guild, the last surviving gang. Because the nameless hero had attacked repeatedly over the past several days, panic had already spread throughout the Black Snake Guild. I heard that guy already wiped out 3 gangs. Now only the Black Snake Guild remains. All of you stay alert and stop relaxing. But in the very next second, the man beside him was instantly decapitated. The man stared at the scene before him in complete shock. The companion who had been alive just a moment earlier collapsed in the blink of an eye. The instant he drew his sword to defend himself, Dom Bansu was already standing behind him. With one clean and decisive strike, he took his life. Go to hell and keep your friend company. Afterward, Dom Banju slowly pushed open the gates of the Black Snake Guild and stepped directly inside without the slightest hesitation. Dom Banju was still wondering where everyone inside had hidden when in the next instant, a rain of arrows descended from above. He immediately leaped backward and dodged the arrows. Raising his eyes toward the source of the attack, he saw a massive group of Black Snake Guild members appear beneath the city wall all at once. So they had already prepared a trap and were simply waiting for Dom Banju to walk into it himself. The man in front shouted harshly, "You nameless rat, and you still dare cause trouble inside the Black Snake Guild?" Faced with that crowd of vicious criminals, Dom Bansu did only one thing. He assumed the opening stance to draw his sword. Get him! Kill that arrogant bastard! The moment those words were spoken, everyone grabbed their weapons and charged together. Some even leaped into the air and attacked Dom Bansu from every direction. Dom Bansu gripped the hilt tightly, and a powerful force instantly enveloped the entire scabbard. 3 forces sword art, sweeping 1,000 soldiers. With a single flash of the blade, the charging men were instantly sliced in half. The criminals in the rear who had not attacked yet were completely stunned by what they saw. But by the time they thought about running away, it was already too late. Dom Bansu's blade never stopped moving. It struck as fast as the wind, cutting down one criminal after another. At that moment, an elite fighter in the distance widened his eyes in fury. "All of you, move aside. I'll kill this brat myself." He charged forward with his spear. Dom Bansu casually grabbed the corpse of the man beside him, twisted it slightly, and hurled it upward. Using the momentum, he threw the body toward the elite fighter while already positioning the long blade in his hand. With a single thrust, both men were pierced together instantly. Even in his final moment, the elite fighter could not believe he would die at the hands of someone as insignificant as Dom Bansu. At that instant, a scar-faced man appeared behind Dom Bansu and slashed his sword downward. "Kid, go to hell." Dom Bansu tried to draw his sword and counterattack, but he had not expected the earlier criminal to grab his weapon tightly. At the thin line between life and death, Dom Bansu used the system space to launch a sword strike behind him, instantly splitting the scarred man's head in half. That's impossible. He never even turned around. Dom Bansu was only relieved that he had prepared a backup plan beforehand when a dagger suddenly pierced his abdomen without warning. The violent impact sent his body flying backward. Finally found an opening. "I thought you were some monster that didn't fear death, but in the end you bleed like anyone else. As long as you're human, you can be killed." Dom Bansu grabbed the broken blade lodged in his stomach with his bare hand and pulled it out. Then he raised his hand and removed the bamboo hat blocking his vision. "Wonderful. In such a beautiful world, I should enjoy it properly." With those words, Dom Bansu smiled and charged into the crowd once again. Meanwhile, inside a straw hut not far from the city wall exit, several men hid in the shadows while coldly observing the battle. "What's happening? There are barely any screams now. Don't tell me he actually killed everyone by himself. Normally we only extort a little money and do some human trafficking once in a while. There are plenty of people worse than us, so why is he targeting us specifically? Just because we're easy prey? We have to finish him here. No way. We can let him push deeper inside." The guild leader is waiting at the mansion. At that moment, a figure appeared at the tower entrance. The man immediately ordered the hidden archers to fire. In the next second, countless arrows shot out from inside the hut, flying toward the dark silhouette. Then he stuck his head out, eager to confirm whether the target had died. But in the next instant, the archer behind him was suddenly decapitated. After that, as if a plague were spreading, the people inside the hut began losing their heads one after another. The man became completely terrified and frozen in shock. No matter how hard he tried, he could not believe it. In only a moment, all his men had fallen dead for no apparent reason. "Nameless hero, show yourself. I know you're in here. What exactly do you want? Why are you trying to wipe us all out? You're nothing but a demon." Before he could finish speaking, his head flew away. "There's only one thing I want, your lives." At that moment, the Black Snake Guild was already covered in corpses. And Dom Bansu finally arrived at the brightly lit mansion. The only person remaining before him was Bayan, leader of the Black Snake Guild. At first it had been the White Tiger Gang. He killed Jonghook and leveled up because of it. But compared to truly powerful opponents, that small increase was still far from enough. To keep growing stronger, Dambanshu began using every method possible, luring enemies into traps, ambushing them from behind, and even setting their camps on fire. By the time the enemy realized something was wrong, there was no route left to escape. By then, more than half of the White Tiger gang had already been slaughtered by him. And during that process, ordinary people gave a name to his massacres, the Nameless Hero. That new identity also made it easier for Dambanshu to eliminate the gangs. By the time Dambanshu killed the White Tiger gang leader, he had already reached level 5 and gained 2 new skills, Lightness Technique and 3 Forces Sword Art. That finally gave him enough strength to crush gangs head-on. And now, among the remaining gangs in Bongyang City, only the Black Snake Guild remained. Deep inside the Black Snake Guild, an old man sat quietly at the mansion entrance. That man was none other than Bayan himself, leader of the Black Snake Guild. A flash of lightning struck from the sky, and Dambanshu had already cut his way there. "So you're the Nameless Hero?" Faced with Bayan's question, Dambanshu did not say a single word. "You don't want to waste words with an old man? Since you call yourself a hero, why hide your face so carefully? Are you afraid I'll recognize you?" "Unfortunately, I'm no hero. I'm just a madman who enjoys slaughter." That so-called hero title was simply invented by those people themselves. Hearing that, Bayan burst into laughter immediately. "So that's it? The great nameless hero they worship is actually just a murderer. This is far too entertaining. It seems even if I die here today, I won't regret it. Come, let this old man see how strong a killer like you truly is." With that, he raised his sword and slowly advanced toward Dambanshu. At the same time, Dambanshu completely unleashed the murderous intent within himself. The two auras collided instantly, but after several exchanges, Dambanshu gradually began losing ground. Bayan spotted an opening in his defense and thrust his sword directly toward Dambanshu's arm. Dambanshu thought the distance was safe enough, but the instant the sword flashed past, a bloody wound split open across his arm. Blood sprayed immediately. Dambanshu retreated at once, forcing space between them. "As I expected, your body is already in terrible condition now. That is your greatest mistake. You dared challenge me while injured? Today I'll make you understand the price of arrogance." Bayan attacked like a madman, repeatedly aiming for Dambanshu's wounds. "If this fight continues like this, my injuries will only worsen. I need to change strategies immediately." Dambanshu was still searching for another way to counterattack when Bayan rushed forward again, intending to cripple him completely. Dambanshu hurriedly used the 3 Forces Sword Art to block head-on. But in the next instant, the enemy's weapon suddenly separated and wrapped around Dambanshu's arm like a venomous snake, tearing off his left hand instantly. "Damn it!" Dambanshu activated his movement technique and kicked Bayan in the stomach, sending him crashing into the nearby building. Dambanshu thought he finally had a moment to catch his breath, but countless shadows of black serpents suddenly rose from the ground. He stared at the scene before him in disbelief. What kind of martial art is this? In the next second, an enormous phantom serpent appeared before him. Bayan spoke slowly. "You truly surprised this old man. Your fighting style is not that of a warrior, but of an assassin, a hunter. You should remember this. When facing a martial artist, the more hidden cards you possess, the longer you survive. And now this old man has more hidden cards than you. That is why you will lose." As he spoke, he swung the massive phantom serpent in his hand. "Against this attack, you have nowhere to run. It's time to end this. Die, nameless mad assassin." The vicious phantom serpent hovered overhead like a colossal beast watching its prey, completely locking Dambanshu in place. The instant it opened its fangs and lunged forward, Dambanshu concentrated power into his right leg and stomped heavily on the ground. A violent cloud of dust exploded upward, instantly swallowing the entire area around him. "You think using dust to blind this old man will let you escape my attack?" At that moment, a flash of light appeared within the dust cloud. Seeing it, Bayan immediately attacked the source with all his strength. "Finally caught you." But the instant he saw what he had struck, his eyes widened. It was the corpse of a Black Snake Guild subordinate. "Damn brat, all you know are cheap tricks. Where is your real body?" Meanwhile, Dambanshu had already leaped high into the air. 3 Forces Sword Art. Second form, straight advance of the Yellow Dragon. Sword energy descended from the sky and shot directly toward Bayan's heart. But Dambanshu did not expect Bayan to stop the strike with his bare palm, forcing the blade away from the fatal point. As expected from an old veteran, he managed to make that decision in an instant. At that moment, Bayan completely lost control. He spun his sharp weapon and suddenly reversed the direction of the blade, launching it straight toward Dambanshu. Dambanshu tried to retreat, but the sword in his hand was firmly trapped by his opponent. With no other option, he immediately summoned the system space. In front of Bayan, corpses of guild subordinates began appearing one after another, shocking him and forcing him to slash wildly in every direction. In only a few seconds, he shredded all those bizarre objects into pieces. When silence finally returned, Bayan struggled to calm himself. He quickly scanned the area searching for Dambanshu, but the place was empty. "You damn nameless assassin, show yourself, you lunatic. You won't even spare the dead." At that moment, an arrow cut through the air, and Bayan raised his sword to block it. "You bastard, don't let me get my hands on you." But in the next second, another arrow grazed the bridge of his nose from behind. Only then did Bayan realize he had become the prey, like a lamb waiting for slaughter. At that moment, a dark shadow flashed before him. Bayan completely lost reason and lashed out violently with his serpent whip. "Finally caught you." But when he saw the shadow clearly, he realized it was only a severed arm. In the next instant, Bayan felt a wave of cold rise behind him as a sinister pressure ran down his spine. A sharp blade pierced through his chest immediately afterward. Bayang never imagined that in the end, he would be the one to lose. And that also meant every gang in Bayang had been completely eradicated. Before I die, can you tell this old man why you did all of this? Does there really need to be a reason? Humans have slaughtered one another since the days they lived like apes until now. Even after building civilizations, nothing changed. Even in this martial world, it's still the weak devouring the weak while the strong rule above all. The only difference now is that I'm the strong one. The gangs of Bayang had been wiped out. Now it was time to move to the next stage and head somewhere stronger, somewhere with more difficult prey. At that moment, deep within a distant mountain range, a powerful martial sect stood tall. Inside the main hall, everyone was gathered for an emergency meeting. The person seated at the head spoke solemnly. There are only 2 years left before the war between the righteous and demonic factions. It is time to activate our plan. Light Cloud, receive your orders. This subordinate is here. Carry out the first scheme. The scene shifted again. After exterminating every gang, Dom Bansu was once more walking through the streets while leading the horse. But at some point, news of the gang's destruction had already spread throughout Banyang. Did you hear? That nameless hero even destroyed the Black Snake Gang in a single strike. We shouldn't call him the nameless hero anymore. We should call him the Great Hero. If it weren't for him, those people would still be trampling all over us. But the man in green standing beside them vaguely felt that something was wrong. But even if he's a hero, is a massacre on this scale really a good thing? What's wrong with it? Those bastards were complete trash. Neither the authorities nor those famous righteous sects ever cared about poor people like us. In the end, the only one willing to protect us was the nameless hero. The man in green thought for a moment and had to admit those words were harsh but true. In times like this, besides the nameless hero, who else would stand up for people like us? Exactly. The nameless hero is our hero. The man raised his arms excitedly and ran through the street shouting, "Long live the nameless hero." The other two exchanged looks and started shouting as well. Those Black Snake Gang bastards got what they deserved. Long live the nameless hero. Very quickly, the surrounding people were swept up in the excitement, and crowds flooded the streets in waves of celebration. Meanwhile, Dom Bansu walked through the crowd, observing everything with cold eyes. It's time. I should leave now. Time passed quickly until nightfall. Dom Bansu brought the beautiful horse back in front of the stable. Suddenly, the system displayed a message. An enemy more than 10 levels above you has entered within a 20-meter radius. At that moment, the passive effect of Spiritual Eye activated automatically. Dom Bansu instantly realized that an extremely powerful expert was inside the stable. Pretending not to notice anything, he raised his hand and opened the door. But there was more than one person inside. One of them was Jidayu, the leader of the Black Crow Squad who had appeared earlier. The other was the head of the Dang family, the heavenly flying demon sword, Dang Remb. Dom Bansu did not know why he had appeared there, but he was certain of one thing. The man standing before him was someone he absolutely could not afford to provoke in his current state. Dang Hienu extended his hand and gently stroked the beautiful horse. It's almost time for us to part as well. Dom Bansu was shocked when he noticed Dang Hienu's feet floating above the ground. Dang Hienu continued speaking. On the 15th day of next month, the second daughter of the Nangun family head will be married. So you intend to present your beloved horse as a wedding gift? Yes. As long as I can send one of my children into the Nangun family, I'm willing to go as far as necessary. Whether through marriage or by sending a son as a disciple, crossing a river is easier with 2 pieces of wood than with one alone. But the Nangun family may reject both options. I know. That's why I summoned you here. No matter what methods you use, this matter must be completed. The instant those words were spoken, an overwhelming pressure descended directly onto Jidayu's shoulders. We leave tomorrow. There is still much to do. Cornered with no room to retreat, Jidayu could only grit his teeth and agree. At that moment, Dang Henu looked toward Dom Bansu, who was kneeling on the floor. Take this one along as well. Make him care for my horse during the journey. There cannot be any mistakes. After saying that, he turned around and left. Time quickly passed until the next day, and Dom Bansu arrived early at the meeting point to wait. Naturally, beside him stood the true star of the journey, Dang Henu's beloved horse. Only one thought filled Dom Bansu's mind. Become stronger. He wanted real martial arts, not the hollow imitations granted by the system. He had already tried copying the movements of martial artists from noble families and gang fighters, but in the end they were only imitations, never the genuine techniques. The worst plan he could imagine was stealing a secret manual and training alone. The best option was finding a true master and becoming his disciple. But becoming someone's disciple was never easy. On top of that, this body was already 18 years old. Starting martial arts training at that age was practically too late. Still, this seemed like an opportunity. The Dang family was one of the 5 great families of the Central Plains, possessing immense influence, and perhaps there he could find a way to learn martial arts. Besides that, even stronger prey awaited him there. Not long afterward, Jideo arrived with his men, completing the group formation, but a subordinate reported that the young master and young lady accompanying them still had not arrived. Dang Lin did not enjoy traveling with servants and would probably catch up later. As for Dangling Kang, he was likely somewhere at an inn on Bongyang Street. Thinking of this, Jidayu quickly mounted his horse and galloped toward Bongyang Street. The large group behind him had no choice but to follow. Soon, they arrived in front of an inn. At that instant, a loud crash came from inside. Again, that guy truly is trouble. Dang Lin Kang was the eldest son of Dang Riri. He was absurdly talented, a genuine martial arts prodigy, but his personality was terrible. He was a womanizer, a drunk, and recklessly impulsive. Because of that, his reputation in the region was awful. Judging by the commotion, he was probably fighting inside once again. In the next second, a figure was thrown through the inner wall and sent flying outside. The moment Jidao saw clearly who had been tossed out, he was completely stunned. The person thrown outside was actually Dangling Kang, the young master of the Dang family. Dangling Kang crashed onto the ground and roared toward the inn. "You bastard, I'll cut you into pieces." But before he could finish speaking, a flash resembling lightning shot past instantly. Jidao could hardly believe that the young master of his family had been beaten so badly right before his eyes. Meanwhile, Dom Bansu was boiling with excitement. The mysterious person before him was definitely an expert among experts, someone overwhelmingly powerful. The specialist even stepped directly on Dangling Kang's face. Under the terrifying pressure pushing downward, Dangling Kang's face visibly twisted beneath the foot. Jidao exploded with rage immediately. "Stop right there, you bastard." The old man merely glanced at him with icy eyes. "And who exactly do you think you are?" The moment those words fell, his aura exploded outward. Jidao immediately broke into a cold sweat. His entire body was drenched instantly. "I advise you to remove your foot from him immediately. He is one of the young masters of the Dang family. If you refuse, we'll be forced to act." At that moment, the guards behind him all took battle stances. But Dom Bansu saw the situation even more clearly. If even the Black Crow Squad leader feared this man, then he was clearly not from this region. From Dom Bansu's perspective, even if everyone there attacked together, they still would not stand a chance against the old man. As long as nobody acted recklessly, no one would die, because a lion never cares about the ants beneath its feet. The old man, however, looked genuinely puzzled. "What is this so-called Dang family? Can you eat it?" With his clan insulted publicly, Jidao finally lost his temper. Anyone who insults the Dang family will not be forgiven. "Calm down. I truly do not know whether the Dang family is food or something to step on." Those words completely ignited Jidao's rage. He instantly drew the longsword at his waist. "Black Crow Squad, hear my command. Attack now and rescue the young master." The subordinates rushed forward with raised swords, yet the old man did not even blink. A strand of green true energy gathered at his fingertips. He opened his hand, and a silver needle as thin as hair shot through the air with terrifying force straight toward Jidao in the middle of the crowd. In the next instant, every attacker was struck in the forehead by silver needles, including Jidao, and they all collapsed stiffly to the ground, unable to move. Even lying there, Jidao could not believe what had happened. That attack felt like a butterfly hunting souls. That old man was actually Tengu, the soul-hunting poison hand, infamous throughout the martial world. Everyone knew there were 20 supreme experts in the martial world. Among them were 2 gods, 3 monsters, 5 peaks, and 10 grandmasters. And the supreme leader of the Tang family of Xuan was one of those 10 grandmasters, Tengu himself. Anyone who offended Tengu could not escape his poisonous hands, even after death. Watching the Black Crow Squad sprawled across the ground, Dom Bansu's heart sank. The Dang family was truly in danger this time, all because an idiot had provoked someone of this level. If this situation was not resolved properly, the entire family could be dragged into ruin. But the real problem was how to settle it now. While Dom Bansu searched desperately for a solution, a young woman walked out of the inn. "Grandfather, let's go. There's no point arguing with rude country fools." Tengu, who had been overflowing with killing intent moments earlier, immediately smiled when he saw her. "As you wish. This lesson is enough to teach them how vast the heavens truly are. As successors of a righteous sect, they spend their days drunk and causing trouble. In my younger days, I would not have shown such mercy. I simply cannot be too cruel toward people of the righteous path. When he wakes up, tell him this. If he ever dares harass an innocent young woman again, he will not live long enough to die of old age." Lying on the ground, Jidao struggled to speak. "Thank you for your mercy, senior." Tengu raised a finger casually. The silver needles lodged in everyone's foreheads were instantly pulled free, flying back into his hand. But just as he turned to leave, he noticed something strange. His gaze landed on Dom Bansu standing in the distance. At that moment, their eyes met. "Wait here for a moment." After saying that, Tengu walked directly toward Dom Bansu. The instant Dom Bansu realized he was the target, his back tensed as though a hunter had marked its prey. Before he knew it, Tengu was already standing in front of him. "Boy, what is your name?" But faced with such a simple question, Dom Bansu froze. This old man has little patience. "I'll ask one last time. What is your name?" The young woman behind him called out impatiently. "Grandfather, what are you doing?" "Nothing." This old man simply wants to ask this brat a few questions. Dom Bansu was stunned. Could the former owner of this body have been connected to this old man somehow? Yet unexpectedly, the first thing the old man asked was only his name. Seeing Dom Bansu remain silent, Tengu's expression darkened. "I'll ask one last time. What is your name?" But Dom Bansu continued staring without answering. "You little brat still smelling of mother's milk." Tengu's anger rose sharply, and he was about to explode when Jidao hurried over to explain. "Senior, he is only a horsekeeper, and he is mute." Tang paused after hearing that and fixed Dom Bansu with a piercing gaze like a blade cutting through him. Dom Bansu felt as though he had been completely seen through. Tang stared at him as if examining some rare creature. Dom Bansu's heartbeat quickened. This could be an opportunity, his chance to escape the identity of a mere stable hand. Tang's eyes sharpened further, and suddenly he grabbed Dom Bansu's arm. A stream of green true energy instantly entered his body and began examining him. The next second, Tang burst into loud laughter. Dom Bansu was completely confused, but Tangi offered no explanation. He turned to Jiden and asked, "You're heading to the Nongun family, correct?" After a brief exchange, Tangi confirmed that Dom Bansu was nothing more than an insignificant horsekeeper. Then he said directly, "I want to take him with me." That is possible. But without him, no one will be able to safely lead that fierce horse to the Nangun family. I understand. Then we will travel together. Once we arrive at the Nangun family, this old man will take the boy away. If necessary, I will write a letter to your family head explaining everything. Hearing that, Jadayu wanted to object, but the moment he met Tengu's murderous gaze, he immediately changed his tone. We originally planned to present both him and the valuable horse to the Nangun family. Since Senior Tang has taken an interest in him, we will follow your wishes. Tengu nodded in satisfaction and stepped forward. What are you all waiting for? Depart immediately. Jadayu felt a massive headache coming on. The entire situation had slipped beyond his control. With no other option, he ordered the servants to carry Danling Kang away for treatment. Soon afterward, the group resumed their journey toward the Ningun family. The scene shifted and night fell. The large procession arrived at another inn. We'll rest here tonight and continue tomorrow. Everyone ate, drank, and relaxed inside the inn. Meanwhile, Dom Banshu alone was sent to the stable to care for the horse. Ever since the battle with the gangs, Dom Banshu had become far more skilled at using the storage space. After repeated experiments, he discovered it had even more functions than expected. He could not only retrieve items but also eject them outward. The only flaw was that the launch speed was not very fast, so experienced fighters could still react. Thinking about this, Dom Banshu casually grabbed a handful of sand and let it slowly slip through his fingers. Just before the grains touched the ground, he instantly opened the system space and stored them. That phenomenon immediately gave him another idea. Without hesitation, he swallowed the handful of sand whole. The moment the sand entered his stomach, he stored it inside the system space again. That meant anything entering his body could also be stored. It was practically a martial art unique to him, so he named it the Divine Art of Inventory Space. At that moment, Tengu's granddaughter appeared. Come with me. My grandfather wants to see you. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she led Dom Banshu to Tengu's room. Tengu sat silently in the center of the room. The moment they entered, he spoke directly. Get on the bed and sit in the lotus position. Dom Banshu did not dare resist, and immediately obeyed. He sat as instructed and removed his outer robe. Tengu examined his body and looked clearly pleased. Very good. Your physique is even better than I expected. As he spoke, he pulled a wooden box from his robes. The instant the young woman saw it, her expression changed. Grandfather, why are you taking out the dragon and phoenix golden needles? Don't tell me you intend to... Tengu placed the box on the floor and said to Dom Banshu, have you ever heard the saying that the same tree bears different fruit depending on where it grows? In fertile soil, it grows sweet. In barren ground, it grows bitter. Humans are no different. Change the environment, and you change a person's destiny. The Dang clan is one kind of soil, while the Tang clan is another. In the Dang family, you are nobody. But in the Tang family, I can make you someone truly important. These are the dragon and phoenix golden needles. I will use them to perform the grand golden needle art on you. The process will be unbearably painful. So painful you may lose consciousness immediately. But if you endure it, I can completely rebuild your body. I may even cure your muteness as well. Are you willing to gamble once? Hearing that, his granddaughter immediately stepped forward to stop him. Grandfather, shouldn't something this important first receive approval from the Council of Elders? Tengi only glanced at her before slowly smiling. Is that so? Then boy, are you prepared? Take the Tang surname, and from this moment onward, your life will change. In the martial world, there were many terms for extraordinary talent, such as Heavenly Meridian Body, Cyclic Sacred Emperor Aspect, 9th Grade Sacred Bones, Heavenly Martial Heart Veins, and Cosmic Sacred Bones. Any one of those aptitudes was enough to make someone famous throughout Murim from birth. They were often described as talents seen once in 100 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years. But above all of them existed an even greater possibility. Dom Banshu had stumbled upon it as casually as picking up a stone from the ground. Compared to it, all those legendary talents were insignificant. Who could have imagined that an ordinary stable hand possessed a miraculous body never before seen in martial arts history? The supreme aptitude that existed only in theory, the body without points. If someone lacked acupuncture points, then true energy would no longer be restricted to fixed pathways, and could create roots according to the user's will. If trained properly, he might even recreate the legendary rain of flowers that covers the sky, a lost technique unseen for a century. If that day ever came, only the Tang family would possess the power to make the entire martial world bow its head. Holding the future of the Tang family in his hands, Tengu could no longer suppress the smile spreading across his face. I will ask once more, is he willing to bear the Tang surname and become a member of the Tang clan from this day forward? Dom Banzu looked at him seriously and gave a slight nod. Excellent. Then I will begin by opening your meridians. Tengu's granddaughter had no way to stop him. Unable to persuade her grandfather, she reluctantly stepped outside to stand guard. At that moment, all the dragon and phoenix golden needles flew out from the wooden box. Tengi released his true energy, wrapped it around every needle, and aimed them all at Dom Bansu. Prepare yourself, we begin now. As he spoke, he slowly inserted the first golden needle into the top of Dom Bansu's head. From that moment on, everything changed completely. What Tengu did not know was that earlier, when he and his granddaughter communicated through voice transmission, they believed Dom Bansu could not understand them. They never imagined a skill like lip reading existed in this world. It was a trick he had learned in his previous life while hunting prey, and he never expected it would become useful that day. A body without acupuncture points. How could I possibly be born with something like this? It's probably because the system transformed my body into something strange, somewhere between human and player. Now that things have gone this far, I'll cooperate with Tengu and carry this act through to the end. When Tengu placed the final dragon and phoenix golden needle into Dom Bansu's body, he was already covered from head to toe in golden needles. Staring at his work, Tengu let out a quiet sigh. What an extraordinary body. Although the Meridian network was only created temporarily, the blood ki flows through it without resistance. In fact, it circulates several times faster than an ordinary martial artist's, a phenomenon unseen for thousands of years. Then Tengu raised his hand and pulled over the wooden box behind him using true ki. Inside the box were the corpses of poisonous insects, with only a deadly centipede still crawling among them. Because this body is so valuable, it can never fall into someone else's hands. To make sure of that, I need to place a gu inside him. A gu was a poisonous insect cultivated through the secret arts of the Tang family of Sichuan. It hid within the body and remained undetectable until activated. If I cannot possess him, then destroying him is better. I will never allow anyone else to control him. The night passed quickly. At last, Tengu completed the procedure. From today onward, you are no longer a horse handler of the Danlo family, but a member of the Tang sect, the strongest clan in Sichuan. As for your name, you will now be called Tangan. Thank you for granting me this name. It was the first time Dom Bansu had spoken since recovering his voice. Hidden from Tengu's sight, the corners of his lips slowly curled into a cold smile. After putting his clothes back on, Dom Bansu opened the door and walked out. Tengu never realized that the gu insect he implanted had been stored inside the system inventory the instant it entered Dom Bansu's body. You want to control my life with that thing? Keep dreaming. From this day forward, Susan of the Danlal family no longer exists. In his place stands Tangan of the Tang sect of Sichuan. This is the true beginning of my journey into the martial world. After traveling day and night with the large caravan, Dom Bansu finally reached the end of the journey. I didn't expect us to arrive earlier than planned. Now dressed in new clothes, Don Hong Wansu gazed at the city before him. This was Bongyang, territory ruled by the Nangun family. Meanwhile, in the mountains near Bongyang, the quiet night was suddenly disturbed by a shadow appearing out of nowhere. A man dressed in black stood atop a rooftop and drew the sword strapped to his back. The woman below sensed danger and screamed in terror. The gray-haired man beside her reacted instantly, narrowly dodging the ambush while grabbing his clothes from the floor in the same motion. In the blink of an eye, he dressed himself and regained his composure. Yet instead of looking at the assassin first, the gray-haired man stared at his stained clothes and cursed coldly. You bastard, those clothes were expensive. Tell me, who exactly are you? The man in black remained silent. Then he activated a martial technique and black ki coiled around the blade of his sword. In the next instant, he lunged directly at the gray-haired man. If you refuse to speak, I'll beat the answer out of you myself. The moment those words were spoken, their attacks collided head-on. At the same time, the gray-haired man evaluated his opponent's strength. What the hell? You're this weak and still dared to assassinate me? He immediately drew another longsword and unleashed a heavy strike. The man in black dodged swiftly and retreated at once. You think you can run after coming here? Stay where you are. The gray-haired man instantly unleashed a relentless storm of sword strikes at him. The black-clad man stayed calm throughout. The dark energy surrounding his blade intensified, and only then did the gray-haired man finally recognize the style. Wrapped in black ki, the assassin's sword moved like a ghost, effortlessly dispersing every strike. The gray-haired man's gaze sharpened in realization. The Yangi assassination sword, so it really is you, Mad Cloud. It's been 10 years, hasn't it? 9 years and 220 days. The gray-haired man burst into laughter. You haven't changed at all, Mad Cloud. You even remember pointless details like that. So what kind of matter requires one of the 18 shadows to come personally? Gray Shadow. I came to deliver our Lord's order. Begin the first plan. Gray Shadow's breathing immediately quickened. So the time to move has finally arrived. Where is that man? Mutant Shadow is with the Nangang family. On the 15th of this month, Mutant Shadow's wedding will take place. A wedding? You're joking. Don't tell me Mutant Shadow actually is. If that's truly the case, then what about Leda Pulga? Other than Mutant Shadow and Nangai, kill everyone else without exception. I've also received information that Tengu, the soul-hunting poison hand, will arrive in Bongyang soon. With the forces we currently have here, I'm afraid we won't be able to stop him. It doesn't matter. When the time comes, the 5 shadows will handle him. Really? Then that should be enough. After delivering the order, Mad Cloud turned to leave, but Gray Shadow suddenly stopped him. Oh, right. What was Mutant Shadow's real name again? Mad Cloud stared at him silently before dissolving into black ink and vanishing without a trace. Whether in the past or now, that irritating personality of his never changes. Mutant Shadow really is enviable. I used to think people like us shadows were destined to die alone, but he became one of the so-called righteous, and now he's about to marry the greatest beauty in Bongyang. Meanwhile, I'm stuck rotting away in this cold place day after day. Suppressing his emotions, Gray Shadow stepped out of the room. With a snap of his fingers, a subordinate instantly appeared behind him. Clean this room and kill everyone who is standing guard tonight as well. Yes, division leader. In truth, Gray Shadow was the branch leader of the Bongyang division of the Heavenly Demon Divine Cult. He was known as the lustful demon of the silver net, blood of the broken chains, under the name Gray Shadow. Now the true curtain of the martial world was finally beginning to rise. As the wedding day of the Nangun family drew closer, the streets and alleys of Bongyang overflowed with a festive atmosphere. Everyone busied themselves preparing for the grand celebration. Please, I beg you, at least give me something to eat. The guard showed no mercy toward the beggar's plea. You filthy beggars, get out of here. The beggar kept insisting and refused to leave. The guard then lifted his leg and kicked him away violently. The commotion quickly caught the attention of those inside the residence. What's happening outside? Someone explain it to me. Young master, it's nothing. Just a few beggars refusing to leave. A nearby passerby immediately recognized him. That's Durock, the star of today's banquet. He really looks dignified and refined. Durock walked over to the beggar. He extended his hand with a gentle smile. Are you all right? After comforting the beggar for a while, he turned to the servants and gave an order. Give them food. There are still several days before the wedding, and there will be leftovers anyway. With that, Durock passed through the main gate. As expected, the rumors about Durock were true. Not only is he skilled in martial arts, but he's also an honorable man. No wonder the Nangun family's young lady likes him. I heard he wandered through Jianghu alone and even defeated the twin demons of Yang. Who would have imagined a wandering young swordsman could defeat demonic figures who terrorized the martial world for decades? And in the end, he became the future son-in-law of the Nangun family. There are even rumors that he mastered the supreme Thunderblade Emperor technique from 300 years ago. While speaking, the passerby beside him suddenly bumped into someone and instantly became irritated. Which idiot was that? Can't you watch where you're going? But the moment he saw clearly who he had bumped into, his tongue nearly froze in fear. Tengu, the soul-hunting poison hand. Tengu grabbed the man's face with one hand and threw him over his shoulder. Move aside, useless fool. This place is filled with worthless trash. Behind Tengu, a large group marched proudly down the street. At that moment, Durock was inside the residence welcoming guests. But the disturbance outside once again drew his attention. Everyone, move aside immediately. I traveled all the way here, and no one came to receive me. By then, Durock had already stepped outside. Senior Tengu, please calm your anger. I am Durock. Oh, so you're the one who invited me. Not bad, but that's all. If I had met you a few years earlier, perhaps this old man would have shown some interest. But now it's too late. My standards rose long ago. As he spoke, Tengu lifted his foot and walked straight into the grand residence. Seeing this, Durock hurried after him. Senior, I'll escort you to the main hall immediately. The moment Dom Bansu looked at the unfamiliar face, he froze briefly because the man strangely felt familiar to him. System notification. An enemy more than 10 levels above you has entered within a 20-meter radius. After seeing the system message, Danu immediately confirmed it referred to the man before him. That meant the person was overwhelmingly powerful, far beyond anything Dom Bansu could currently confront. Most people's bodies contain flaws in one way or another, but that man was unnaturally perfect. Dom Bansu sensed the aura of someone similar to himself. He had concealed his body using another method. Just like Dimu, that man was a predator. The scene shifted to the Grand Imperial Hall of the Nangun family. On the roof of the hall stood a row of treasured swords planted in place. They belonged to the previous heads of the family. No matter whether someone became a sovereign, supreme master, or emperor, everyone eventually died. After enough years passed, the world completely forgot them. Tengu lamented the cruelty of time as he climbed the steps toward the Imperial Hall. When Tengu reached the entrance, he spotted a familiar figure inside. The old man in the hall was the head of the Nangun family, and the woman beside him was the bride of this grand wedding, Nangun. Nangun. Tengu. It truly has been a long time since we last met, hasn't it? You, the honorable head of the Nangun family, are still busy with the same embarrassing matters as always. Forget it. I won't complain about it this time. You haven't changed at all. From afar, the granddaughter watched in complete surprise, never imagining her grandfather and the Nangun family head were so close. Nangun also noticed Tengu's granddaughter. Isn't that Tengun? It's been so long. Sister Nangun has become even more beautiful. At that moment, Durock also stepped forward. I forgot to properly greet you earlier. My name is Durock. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Tengan. So does that mean I should call you brother-in-law? Nangun became so embarrassed she did not know how to react until she noticed there was still a stranger in the hall. Tengu, who is that? Him? His name is Tengan. As everyone turned to look at him, Dom Bansu stepped forward with a smile. Unexpectedly, Ryuk was the first to greet him. So you're Tengan, right? It's a pleasure to meet you. Dom Bsu clearly sensed how dangerous that man was, but in that situation he had to show basic courtesy. By the way, tonight I plan to take Nangun on a small cruise across the lake. Would you like to join us? Of course, thank you. Sang, you should come too. Not long afterward, Ryuk led the group aboard a sightseeing boat on the lake. It was Tengen's first time seeing such scenery, and she could barely contain her excitement. After all, the lake was already renowned for its beauty, especially at night. Its nighttime view was considered one of the finest sights in the world. Nangun and Tengen chatted while admiring the scenery. Meanwhile, Durock led Dom Bansu to the opposite side of the boat. We can't join the women's conversation. We men should have a drink instead. What do you think? I'll bring out something special. With that, he headed toward the cabin. On the surface, this man was the future son-in-law of the Nangun family, but underneath he felt like a predator hiding its fangs. Dom Bansu knew people like that very well. That man was definitely preparing something major. The only question was when and where it would happen. Dom Bansu vaguely sensed himself being pulled into a massive unseen scheme. System notification. An enemy more than 10 levels above you has entered within 20 meters. Did Durock trigger the alert when he entered the cabin? There shouldn't be any other expert on this ship. Carefully following the distance shown by the system, Dom Bansu realized the target was beneath the deck below him. In other words, besides Durock, another hidden enemy was concealed there. Sorry for the delay, I couldn't remember where I left the liquor. This is the strongest bottle in my collection. I hope you enjoy it. But Dom Bansu had no mood for drinking, so he quickly made an excuse. Sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to rest for a while. With that, he walked toward the cabin. Dom Bansu's unusual behavior seemed to catch Durock's attention. As soon as he reached the cabin door, another system notification appeared. An enemy more than 10 levels above you has entered within 11 meters. What's happening? I'm clearly moving farther away. Then why is the distance shrinking? The moment Dom Bansu stepped inside, the distance continued dropping until it reached only 1 meter, meaning the enemy was directly beneath his feet in the lower compartment. Using the positioning data, Dom Bansu identified 4 experts below, including Durock. There were 5 in total. 5 enemies, all at least 10 levels above me, gathered on this ship. If they intended to kidnap Nangun, they would have acted already. Since they haven't moved yet, their target is probably the entire Nangun family. The system only says they're over 10 levels stronger than me, but I can't tell whether it's 20 or 30 levels higher. Experts at that level infiltrating the Nangun family could easily bring disaster. With Tango nearby, he'll never allow me to escape freely. And ahead of me stands a group of powerful enemies hiding in the shadows. Now I can neither advance nor retreat. What choice am I supposed to make? The scene shifted as the Nangun family guards conducted a strict patrol. Several guards arrived at the entrance to an underground canal. Captain Gonzagong, do we really have to inspect the canal too? Aren't we being overly cautious? As soon as he heard that, the captain's face darkened with irritation. You brat, are you talking back now too? Is it really that hard to check the canal while we're at it? The wedding is almost here. If something goes wrong, none of us will be able to take responsibility. As soon as he finished speaking, he grabbed the man and shoved him straight into the canal entrance. The others had no choice but to light candles and follow him inside slowly. Meanwhile, Captain Gonzagong remained outside waiting impatiently. What idiots! It'd be nice if an enemy actually showed up. It's dark as hell down there, and we're barely getting by with these pathetic candles. Why is everyone outside drinking and celebrating while we're suffering in this miserable place? At that moment, Dom Bansu suddenly appeared before them and blew out the candle with a single breath. Inside the pitch-black canal, the 3 men became helpless sheep awaiting slaughter. The only sounds echoing through the tunnel were splashing blood and sharp screams before they abruptly stopped. A second later, the screams started again. Soon after came hurried footsteps and water splashing beneath running feet. Finally, a flash of sword light appeared, and the canal returned to deadly silence. Outside, Captain Gonzagong grew increasingly annoyed while waiting. What the hell is going on? You've been in there forever and still haven't come out. If I find out you're slacking off, you're finished. But the moment he entered deeper into the canal, he saw a severed arm floating in the water. He recognized it instantly as his companion's arm. Captain Gonzagong was so horrified that he immediately turned to flee. In his panic, he noticed a faint light shining around the bend ahead. But when he approached, he found an even more terrifying scene. Strange, where did I put the other arm? The guards who had entered moments earlier had already been torn apart. You came at the perfect time. I'm missing one arm. Seeing the bloody scene, Captain Gonzagong trembled with rage and charged at Dom Bansu with his sword raised. After exchanging several blows, Dom Bansu immediately realized he had underestimated him. That patrol captain was far stronger than expected. You're the man who came with Tengu. You're a guest, so why are you doing this? After a brief silence, Dom Bansu answered with words even he barely believed. I don't have a choice. I'm doing this for the Nangun family too. The instant those words left his mouth, Captain Gonzagong exploded with fury. You lunatic. You killed my men and treated their bodies like toys. And you still claim this is for the Nangun family? I'll slice you apart piece by piece until my anger is satisfied. Heavenly Wind Sword Art. First form, swift winds and floating clouds. 3 forces sword art. Second form, direct strike at the yellow dragon. In the next instant, the martial techniques of both men collided head-on. Dom Bansu never expected the captain's power to be even fiercer, and he was instantly blown backward. You bastard, I'll tear you apart. Captain Gonzagong unleashed multiple arcs of sword light in rapid succession, all aimed at Dom Bansu. This time, Dom Bansu failed to dodge even one of them. The sharp waves of energy sliced across his entire body and hurled him away once again. At this point, only a quarter of his health remained. If he didn't think of something soon, he would die there. At that moment, Captain Gonzagong charged again with sword in hand, and with a single strike severed the fingers Dom Bansu used to grip his weapon. Your sword is gone? How do you plan to fight now? But in the very next second, a streak of sword energy shot back toward him, barely grazing Captain Gonzagong's cheek. That sudden attack had nearly killed him. What is going on? His sword already left his hand. Then what kind of sinister trick was that? At that moment, Dom Bansu's right hand was once again gripping the longsword. But as soon as he closed in, the weapon had already shifted to his left hand. Captain Gonzagong barely managed to raise his sword to block before the incoming strike suddenly vanished. His counterattack struck empty air, throwing his balance completely off. Before he could understand what kind of technique it was, Dom Bansu delivered a brutal kick that sent him flying out of the canal. While Captain Gonzagong was still spinning through the air, Dom Bansu's sword light chased after him. Only one final strike was needed to finish him. But Dom Bansu had also reached his limit. His entire body collapsed stiffly onto the ground. Looks like that last hit worked. That scared me to death. I almost really died. Dom Bansu struggled back to his feet. His body was covered in injuries, and his health bar was nearly empty. The only good news was that his experience bar was almost full. Now I can only rely on that method. Grinding his teeth, he raised his sword and charged again. You're already this injured, and you still dare force your body forward? I'll send you straight to the afterlife. Heavenly Wind Sword Art. Final form. Heavenly Wind tears the sky. Captain Gonzagong swung his blade downward, releasing a massive arc of cutting energy that crashed toward Dom Bansu. Even if you want to die with me, I won't allow it. Dom Bansu continued dodging the terrifying sword energy. As long as I can avoid these strikes, I can still... But in the next instant, two hidden blades of energy suddenly appeared and sliced off both of Dom Bansu's arms, leaving him completely unable to fight. Idiot, you overestimated yourself and still dared challenge me. This ends now. At that exact moment, Dom Bansu revealed a strange smile. You fell for it. He opened his mouth, and a dazzling burst of sword energy shot out from inside, flying directly toward Captain Gonzagong. The surprise attack was impossible to evade, and instantly pierced through his head. A level-up notification appeared, and a massive explosion of light erupted from Dom Bansu's body, illuminating the entire area. Everyone deep within Bongyang saw the strange pillar of light. Who the hell caused that? After Dom Bansu dealt the finishing blow, a brutal massacre was unfolding within the Dang family estate. Countless black-clad figures stormed the residence, leaving no survivors behind. Dang Hianu stared blankly at the living nightmare before him, as despair crushed the will keeping him standing. At that moment, a dark figure stepped through the carnage and stopped in front of him. That man was leading the attack, Guan Un. What exactly did our Dang family do wrong? Why are you doing this? Before he could finish speaking, Guan swung his sword and split half his head apart. Being weak is your crime. Inform Pega Yol Yi. The Dang family has been wiped out, and the plan can begin. Not long afterward, the messenger arrived before Pega Yol Yo. So Guan Un's side already finished. That brat really doesn't know how to enjoy himself. Still, what was that beam of light from the Nangun family? Inconsistent Shadow wouldn't use something so flashy to send a signal. Did the Nangun family discover the plan? Thinking of that possibility, Pega Yo-Yo immediately ordered every route leading to Pyongyang sealed off. The first phase of the scheme had begun. Meanwhile, the Nangun family also discovered what Dom Bansu had left behind inside the canal. Written on the wall in blood were the words, "When the full moon rises, the emperor will fall, and an outsider will claim the throne." Even the Nangun family head was shaken by the gruesome scene. Family head? What kind of madman could do something like this? Whoever did it doesn't matter. One thing is clear, someone has targeted the Nangun family. With the wedding date so close, this is a serious problem. Send more men immediately and investigate every suspicious individual. After saying that, the family head left the blood-soaked place alone. The emperor probably refers to the Nanguan family. The full moon refers to the wedding held on the night of the full moon. Then who exactly is this outsider? Whoever you are, I'll drag you out from the shadows. The scene shifted once more to the imperial hall of the Dang family. At that moment, the upper ranks were holding an emergency meeting. I've said from the beginning this is obviously a setup. You're suspecting Duroc just because of a sentence written in blood. He's about to become the Nangan family's son-in-law. If this story spreads, the entire martial world will laugh at the Nangan family. Hallmaster Zhang, your words are biased. What we should focus on now are the invader's final words. Anyone who hears the word outsider will immediately think of Dohao. The fact that the intruder infiltrated the estate, openly killed patrol guards, and deliberately left behind such an obvious clue, proved he hadn't come merely to spy. All of you saw that pillar of light last night, didn't you? Then why would someone send such an obvious signal and vanish like a ghost afterward? And now, because of a few words left by an unknown person, you want to arrest our future son-in-law? If this turns out to be a false accusation, what dignity will the Nangun family have left? The argument between the two grew fiercer, and the tension inside the hall became suffocating. Both of you make reasonable points. That's exactly why the family head already dispatched the leaders of the Heavenly Thunder Unit and Heavenly Wind Unit to investigate whether someone truly plans to attack the family on the night of the full moon. If that's true, signs should already be appearing. At that moment, a man rushed anxiously into the hall. The person who arrived was Nangun, leader of the Heavenly Thunder Unit, who had gone out to investigate. Family head, urgent report. The Heavenly Thunder Unit sent to investigate has been completely wiped out. The entire hall erupted in shock. How is that possible? They agreed to return before an incense stick finished burning, yet not one of them came back. Why do you think this happened to them? Nangan stayed silent for a long moment. In the end, he voiced a theory so unbelievable that even he struggled to accept it. It seems the Nangan family has been surrounded. The moment those words were spoken, everyone found it even harder to believe. Could it be the 18 river strongholds of the Antis River controlling the waterways? But we already have a non-aggression pact with them. Then are you saying the land routes have been blocked too? But within Bongyang, what force could possibly surround the Nangan family? That makes no sense. No, there's one faction you forgot. The only organization in the martial world capable of surrounding the Nangan family is the Heavenly Demon Castle. The next day arrived, and Dom Bansu began training on his own. After countless attempts, he finally condensed genuine ki inside his body, rather than relying on power granted by the system. At that moment, he sensed a strange force, as though energy were slowly flowing through every part of him. Inside his mind, the desperate battle from the previous night replayed endlessly. That was the will born at the edge of life and death, the instant he fully understood his opponent's movements. Every strike aimed at Dom Bansu repeated vividly in his thoughts, and he absorbed the experience of that battle completely. If he had used the first form of the Heavenly Wind Sword Art back then, I definitely would have died. In some ways, martial arts were even more overwhelming than game abilities. By controlling the flow of true ki through the major acupoints, releasing it instantly in battle, and shaping that ki into a blade with a single strike, one could destroy an enemy outright. He repeated the process in his mind again and again, and Dom Bansu finally reached the point where he no longer depended on the divine art of inventory space, recreating last night's victory with his own strength. I managed to learn Tanga's modified method. It's truly incredible. Just reviewing a battle is enough to gain this level of insight. Even though these acupoints are temporary, as long as I memorize them and train until they become instinct, it won't take long before I truly master martial arts. At that moment, Dom Bansu reached level 13 and unlocked his first class advancement quest. First advancement mission, Ronin. Exclusive tester class mission. Completion condition, eliminate 100 enemies above level 10. Seeing the message, even Dom Bansu was stunned. So even in this martial world, I can still change classes. Enemies above level 10. That probably matches the strength of those patrol guards from last night. Captain Gonzagong was likely around level 15. I thought I had become stronger, but now it feels like I've only just stepped onto this road. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted from a large building not far away behind him. Only 10 minutes earlier, Duroc had gone to inspect the canal entrance where Dom Bansu fought the night before. But the servants had already cleaned the place thoroughly, leaving nothing to investigate. He could only return in frustration. Ever since that pillar of light appeared, security has tightened layer by layer. There are also far more martial artists on the streets now, so I need to warn the shadows immediately. At that exact moment, Nangunin blocked his path alongside several subordinates. Young Master Duroc, where are you hurrying off to? Duroc's heart skipped a beat because, as a hallmaster, Nangan should not have appeared there. No matter what, I need to bluff my way past him first. I heard the wedding procession would pass through here, so I came to inspect the route. Really? Then after seeing it, do you think it's a good omen or a bad one? That single sentence instantly put Duroc on alert. He glanced at the subordinates behind Nangan, and every one of them looked ready to attack at any moment. Duroc immediately realized his identity had been exposed. Since the confirmation has been made, come with us to the Imperial Hall. Don't rush to refuse. The family head personally summoned you. Since Duroc already knew his disguise had been uncovered, there was no reason to obey quietly. I've actually grown quite fond of this body. I didn't expect to be discovered this quickly. Duroc's aura shifted, and Nangungi immediately reached for his sword. But at that exact moment, the building behind them suddenly exploded, violently drawing everyone's attention. What happened? That's the direction of the Imperial Hall. At the same instant, a dazzling golden light flared behind Nangun. Lightning wrapped around Duroc as he stepped forward. Thunder Blade Art. First form, Lightning Advance. In the next second, a bolt of lightning crashed into the crowd ahead. With a single strike, the entire cluster of buildings was reduced to rubble. The deafening blast alarmed everyone nearby. What happened? Who did this? Isn't that Master Duroc? Why would he do something like this? When the dust and smoke finally cleared, only one person remained alive from the group that had once numbered in the dozens. Even though it was a surprise attack, I still can't believe it. My men were wiped out by a single blow. How can he possibly be this strong? At that moment, a figure rushed out from the crowd. It was the gate guard who had been closest to Duroc. Young Master Du, what are you doing? Please stop at once. But in the very next second, the guard was killed without mercy. To Duroc, those people were no more than insects. The friendship he showed had always been nothing but an act. After witnessing that scene, the others completely broke down and began fleeing in panic. Young Master Du has gone mad. Run. I pretended for so long I nearly suffocated. As expected, killing whenever I want is the greatest pleasure. You bastard, who are you really? You want to know? Go ask the King of Hell. The moment he finished speaking, he activated the Thunderblade art and charged at Nangun in a flash of lightning, thrusting his sword forward. Faced with that fatal strike, despair filled Nangun's eyes. But just as the sword tip was about to hit, a golden dragon phoenix needle pierced Duroc's wrist, while a pair of feet stepped coldly onto the blade. Boy, do you even realize what you're doing? At that moment, Dom Banshu stood nearby, watching everything clearly. As expected, just as I thought, everything he showed before was only an act. Damn it, the soul-hunting poison hand arrived too quickly. In the next instant, their forces collided head-on, unleashing a terrifying shockwave. When the dust settled, even the Dragon Phoenix golden needle lodged in Duroc's arm had been blown away. Having narrowly escaped death, Nangun spoke with a trembling voice. The martial world has become crueler than ever. I never imagined a son-in-law would dare attack his own father-in-law. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Hayuki's mouth. In the martial world, the fewer attachments you have, the longer you survive. As they spoke, another explosion erupted near the Imperial Hall. I don't have time to waste with you. While you still can, reveal your identity and your plan without hiding anything. I've heard of the legendary hidden weapon techniques of the soul-hunting poison hand for a long time. I want to witness them personally. But the instant Dom Bansu heard that, he immediately realized Duroc intended to escape. From the beginning, Dom Bansu had found Duroc's movements suspicious, as though he were searching for something. Then Tangan suddenly appeared in front of Dom Bansu. What happened to Grandpa? Why did he rush here all of a sudden? Dom Bansu's heart sank. She was the target Duroc had been looking for. The moment Duroc saw Tangan, his eyes lit up, and lightning power burst out around him again. Tangay, however, remained calm. In front of me, any move you make is just suicide. But Duroc's true target was never Tangay. Dom Bansu immediately rushed toward Tangan. At the same time, Tangay controlled the Dragon Phoenix golden needles and launched them at high speed. But Duroc had already raised his sword and hurled it with all his strength. Tangay froze. You threw away your sword in the middle of a fight? Are you surrendering? But when he realized where the sword was flying, it was already too late to stop it. Damn it, Tangan, move! At the critical moment, Dom Bansu shoved Tangan to the ground and shielded her with his own body. In the next second, the entire area erupted with a deafening explosion. When the smoke and dust cleared, only a massive crater remained at the center of the blast. Seeing that, Tengu was overwhelmed with regret. But soon after, he was shocked to discover that not far away, Dom Bansu was standing upright while holding Tengen completely unharmed. He had only suffered a few superficial injuries, nothing life-threatening. After Tengu took his granddaughter back, he quietly said to Dom Bansu, "Tengen, this time, you have my thanks." At that moment, Di Hyuk's mocking laughter echoed from the distance once more. "Your granddaughter was fortunate to avoid my attack just now. So, Hero Tang, another day, Duroc will visit again." With that, he turned to leave, but at that exact moment, a heavy icy pressure suddenly descended. The source of that chilling aura was the figure who had just saved Tengan. Dom Bansu had finally found the true prey he wanted to hunt after arriving in this world, and excitement consumed his entire being. When Duroc clearly saw Dubenu's expression, it was as if he suddenly remembered something. "So it was you behind that pillar of light last night and the exposure of my identity. It was all your doing, wasn't it? I'll remember you. Until next time." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure blurred and rapidly retreated. "Boy, do you think you can escape from this old man?" Tang was about to pursue him when Tengen woke up in his arms. For her safety, Tengu had no choice but to stop. "You win this time." The scene shifted, and night had already fallen. The Imperial Hall had long since been reduced to ruins, but after suffering heavy losses, they finally managed to kill the invaders. I truly never imagined that only 4 men could reduce the Imperial Hall to this state. So the twin demons of Yank weren't really killed by Duroc before. It seems we've been manipulated from the very beginning. Even the carrier pigeons sent to the Martial Alliance had been intercepted and killed by hawks that appeared from nowhere. Even the sect's Grand Protective Formation had been destroyed in the explosion. As for us, we've become turtles trapped inside a jar. Dragging his wounded body, Nangun stepped forward. "Family head, at this point, we only have 3 options left. Fight to the death, break through the encirclement and flee, or request reinforcements. We both know the first 2 won't work. Then explain the third option. We can only send someone to deliver information to the Martial Alliance. Traveling at full speed from here would take at least a week. And to cross the enemy blockade, only 1 person is capable of doing it right now. Tang Yi, the soul-hunting poison hand, whose movement technique is unmatched. Even for Tang Yi, however, breaking through alone against that many enemies would be extremely difficult." Nangyun remained silent for a moment before speaking softly. "We can make use of the several hundred guests still inside the family grounds who are desperate to leave. To resolve the life or death crisis facing the Nangyun family, the family head urgently gathered the strongest among them. Tang Yi, the child behind you is, don't worry. He already carries the Tang clan surname and can be trusted. Just say what needs to be said." The head of the Nangun family stayed silent for a long while before finally making his choice. "Please help us through this crisis. Tengu, escort the honored guest to Lake So and request reinforcements. Have you truly thought this through? Once this old man leaves, most of the people here will die." But after seeing the determination on the Nangun patriarch's face, Tengu understood the decision had already been made. "If we travel from Lake Sonu to the Yangtze River by boat, we can request aid from the 18 Yangtze River fortresses. We've already gathered the ships, the honored guests, and their attendants at the southern water gate. If possible, I hope you can depart tonight." Tangi could only sigh helplessly. This old man will make the preparations. After saying that, he turned to leave. The Nangun family head spoke again. "When you go, take Nangun and Rai with you as well. I don't want her witnessing the battle between me and Dureoki." Is there truly no other option? The Nangun patriarch froze. The next moment, tears finally slipped from the corners of his eyes. "I'm afraid those of us staying behind won't survive even 11 days. Fool, do you think this old man would allow that to happen? I am Tengu, the soul-hunting poison hand. Hold out until this old man returns. Even if you must risk your lives, endure until then. This old man will come back with reinforcements." With that, he opened the door and left to prepare for departure. Nearby, Dom Bansu watched everything in silence. The scene shifted, and Dom Bansu went alone to the riverside. He had indeed saved Tangen, but he never expected to hear the Nangun family's entire plan firsthand. Still, their strategy contained far too many uncertainties. What troubled him most was that Tangen refused to leave his side. She clearly looked irritated by the whole situation. What exactly is Grandpa thinking? Why do I have to stay with this idiot all the time? But when she looked at Dom Bansu's quiet back, her cheeks flushed unconsciously. She walked beside him and spoke softly. "Thank you for saving me today. Don't misunderstand. I just feel that if I don't say it now, I may never get another chance." But the moment Dom Bansu saw her expression, an indescribable sense of unease rose inside him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Pegayol stood on high ground watching the distant Nangun estate. A figure slowly approached him from behind. "In constant shadow, so you finally appeared? No, I should call you Duhawk now. Explain properly how things turned out like this." Pegayol spoke mockingly. "From your tone, it sounds like you think I've already lost. And haven't you? The 4 shadow guards died in battle. And more importantly, the fact that you've shown yourself now means the first plan already failed. You're mistaken. The core of the first plan was for me to become a hero of the Justice Alliance. Even if Inconstant Shadow is here, that doesn't mean I can't still become that hero." As soon as he finished speaking, Inconstant Shadow's body began mutating. His skin twisted and rippled unnaturally. The next second, Inconstant Shadow transformed completely into Nangun's appearance. "With this face, I won't even need to do anything. I'll naturally become the heir of the Nangun family." When Pegayol heard that, his pupils narrowed. Then he burst into laughter. "Out of everyone I know, you truly are the most twisted. Now things have become far more interesting. Speaking of which, Nangun, the greatest beauty in Bongyang, really is beautiful. Even knowing you're a man, my heart still stirs. Inconstant Shadow's expression instantly turned cold. Do you want to die? Don't get angry. What difference does it make whether someone is male or female? The next moment, both their auras exploded outward, distorting even the surrounding air. Just as Inconstant Shadow was about to move, a massive bird crossed the sky above them. Looking closer, there was a letter tied to its leg. This is a message from Water Shadow. The letter contained only one word: float. Looks like the ships have already departed. I should move as well. What are you planning to do? I'll follow that hawk and check on Water Shadow's side. Why? The Nangoon family is clearly more interesting. No, I found something even more interesting. You're talking about the soul-hunting poison hand? Be careful not to lose your advantage. Wait, don't tell me it's connected to that flash of light from last night. You found them? Tell me who it was. Sorry, there's no chance I'd share something that entertaining with you. Pega tried to stop him, but it was already too late. Inconstant Shadow vanished before his eyes. At the same time, the fleet led by Tengu departed in full formation. Dom Bansu and Tengen traveled beside Tengu, though hidden sentries carefully monitored their every movement from the shadows. After lowering his spyglass, the man immediately turned and rushed back to the main camp to report. Chief, I confirmed everything. Is that so? Then raise the sails and move out. That man was none other than the commander of the 18 Yanks river fortresses. Aboard the ship, staring at the route that could erupt into danger at any moment, Dom Bansu calmly analyzed the situation. Even though Tengu was an unmatched master, protecting both Tengen and Nangoon would make escaping through multiple layers of enemies nearly impossible. If the situation became hopeless and one among Tengen, Nangoon, and Dom Bansu had to be abandoned, Dom Bansu knew he would be the one left behind. Because of that, he needed to prepare for the worst in advance. Yet strangely, despite the fleet traveling for so long, they had not encountered a single enemy. It's too quiet. The enemy has the strength to surround the Nangoon family. So naturally, this water route should also be under military blockade. Just to be safe, send orders to slow the ships as much as possible. While everyone remained tense and on high alert, a crew member suddenly pointed ahead and shouted hoarsely, "Lights ahead!" Deep within the fog, a long row of bright lights suddenly appeared. When the people finally recognized the emblem on the distant sails, they rushed excitedly onto the deck and shouted, "Reinforcements have arrived! We're saved!" They assumed the Nangoon family's request for aid had been answered, but the symbol actually belonged to the 18 young Tizer River fortresses. Did they really come to help us? Then why did they bring so many ships? It looks more like they came to block our path. First, the entire journey had been unnaturally quiet, without a single enemy in sight, and now dozens of ships had suddenly appeared to seal off the route ahead. Combining those facts, Tengoon instantly realized they were not reinforcements but an extermination force. Turn around immediately. Get out of here now. Everyone listen carefully. They're enemies. Turn the ships around now. But by then it was already too late. The fortress master on the opposing flagship stood at the bow with rows of archers behind him and coldly gave the order, "Fire." The next second, a storm of arrows rained down upon them. Everyone froze in terror. Under the relentless barrage of flaming arrows, there was nowhere to hide on the deck, and people began falling one after another. Fortunately, Teng Hu was protecting the ship carrying Dom Bansu, blocking every incoming arrow. But when Dom Bansu saw the scene from hell unfolding before him, fear did not appear in his eyes. Instead, they shone with excitement. Tengu roared furiously, "Anyone still alive, wake up. Turn the ships immediately." But when he looked behind them, his expression changed completely. At some unknown moment, the waterway behind them had also been sealed off by ships from the Heavenly Demon Castle. They were completely surrounded. "Grandfather, there are enemies both ahead and behind us. What do we do?" Tengu gritted his teeth and could only order the sailors to steer toward the shore. But before the ship could even reach land, an enemy vessel slammed violently into it. A figure leaped high into the air and crushed several people into bloody pulp with a single strike of his staff. The moment he landed, he stood up smiling and gave the order, "Kill everyone here." In the next instant, a one-sided massacre began. Watching everything from afar, Tengu felt as if his chest were being crushed. An overwhelming helplessness filled him. Damn it, did we really come this far just for this? As if making an unbearably difficult decision, Tengu slowly walked toward Nangoon High. The next moment, a silver needle pierced the side of her neck precisely, and Nangoon instantly lost consciousness. When Tengun saw it, she rushed forward immediately. "Grandfather, what are you doing? The sea route is blocked. We have to move forward toward land now. But even for you, grandfather, escaping while carrying 3 people is impossible." Tengu answered with only one cold sentence. "Only 2. The meaning behind those words was painfully clear. He intended to abandon Dom Bansu. "Tengu, this old man is sorry. Once, I coveted your talent and wanted to use you as the cornerstone of the Tang family." At that moment, Tengu's voice suddenly weakened, as though he had aged many years in an instant. "It seems this old man has truly grown old enough to develop feelings for a mere puppet. I won't kill you, but I won't save you either. Whether you live or die will depend entirely on your own fate." Although Tengen did not want to abandon Dom Bansu, faced with life and death, she could only grit her teeth and leave him behind. Just as Tengu was about to depart with the others, he spoke once more. "Tengen, that is the name this old man gave you. Perhaps the Tang family will forget you, but this old man never will." With that, he leaped into the air and vanished into the vast night. Tengu looked at Dom Bansu one final time before turning away to follow Tengu. In the end, only Dom Bansu remained standing alone in the blazing sea of fire. "So from this moment on, this battle belongs to me. A large man climbed aboard the ship with a saber in hand. The instant he charged toward Dom Bansu turned and brought down his sword, severing the man's head in a single strike. Then he grabbed the decapitated corpse and advanced step by step. Come on, the hunt begins. The sailors aboard the ship were being tortured and slaughtered one after another, completely unable to resist. At that moment, a figure slowly emerged from the flames. Seeing him, a bald man asked in confusion, "How are you completely unharmed?" "Don't worry, I've never felt better." And this is where the story ends. If you enjoyed it and haven't left a like yet, do it now. It really helps us. Check whether you're subscribed to the channel and make sure notifications are turned on. While waiting for the next video, watch the one on your screen too. It's also really good. That's all for now, and of course I'll see you in the next video.